Hi, y'all. I'm Barry Hack. If you would open your Bibles to Matthew 5, 43 and 44. If you're like me, your Bible that you use the most is not necessarily a paper Bible, but on your phone, the Bible app. It's a great tool because it has so many different versions of the Bible all at once. You can have the Amplify, the New International version that's the reader, so it's a little bit easier to read. They have the English Standard Version, the King James, Darby's translation. They have so many different translations, and it's great to be able to go and see how a particular group of people that translated the Bible put the different Greek and Hebrew words into English and what they say. Now, Amplified by far is the best. It adds a lot of words until that Greek or Hebrew word is defined exclusively in English. So if they were saying something in Greek like anthropon, which basically is man, and they're talking about man's faith, they would say man's bad faith or man's faith was not great in Jesus Christ, or his lack of faith in Jesus Christ. They would expand out instead of saying man and faith. Amplified version to me is one of the best. I, on a regular basis, read the NIV if you're wondering at all. So Matthew chapter 5, verse 43 and 44 is where we're going to focus on today. But we're going to start off with Jesus and what he's doing. He's doing his Sermon on the Mount. He's on a hill. He's got all these people gathered around. All these Jews are gathered around him and listening to him. For when, as you know, when he speaks, people listen. Kind of cool, isn't it? Jesus speaks and people listen. So they're all listening to what he says. And he's talking about different things, but basically it's about your witness. He's saying, blessed are those who mourn, for they're going to be comforted. Blessed are those who are persecuted, for what? They're going to be fulfilled one day. When men say bad things about you, you're going to be justified. You're living for me. You're doing right. And I'm not giving an exact Bible phrase. I'm kind of paraphrasing here, so don't quote me on all this stuff. He gets into love for your enemies. He gets into salt and light. What is salt and what is light? You know, if salt loses its saltiness, what do you use it for anyways? I mean, we use salt in Texas sometimes to, well, more sand, to get the highways when it ices outside. We use salt in our food to give it flavor, to bring out that flavor we want. I remember one time someone told me they salted their apples. That may be too much salt, but it does bring out a different flavor. It makes it more flavorful. Light, we all like light. When we had no electricity and no power in Texas, what did I do? I went by and I'd hit the power switch and nothing would happen. Very depressing. You know, you need light to be able to see, to get things done. Electricity is a great thing. So I'd go by and I'd hit the power light and nothing would happen. How sad is that when God goes to hit the power light on us and nothing comes on? So today I hope to encourage you with a short little message on love for the enemies, or for more importantly for your enemies. And today we probably don't have that many enemies, in all honesty. Back in the day, people had enemies on every side. It was nation against nation, and sometimes city against city. When it's in First Kings, when the tribes broke up, when you had the separation of David's kingdom, when Solomon kind of didn't do so good, and his son Rehoboam said, "I'm going to make all of y'all work extra hard," and they're like, "Nope." And Jeroboam went his way with 10 tribes, and Rehoboam went his way with a couple of tribes. So it was kind of a thing back then. And so Jesus sits them all down, and we're getting down to Matthew 5, 43 and 44. And he says, you have heard that it was said. And so what he's telling here is these Pharisees, these people that are teaching you wrong. They're telling you that love your neighbor and hate your enemies. You've heard that said, right? Love your enemies. Love your neighbor and hate your enemies. That's wrong. I don't want you doing that. And I should know best because I'm God, and I'm the one that originally gave you the 10 Commandments and the law. So here we go. You've heard that it said, love your neighbor and hate your enemies. But I tell you, love your enemies, and what does he say? Pray for those who persecute you. An amazing inspirational quote from God's Son, Jesus, to all these people. Love your enemies, pray for those who persecute you. I don't know if you've ever practiced this before in your life. I know I have. I've had some people that I've been done wrong by, or that I struggled to love. Yes, I've struggled to love, okay? I admit it. I think all of us have struggled to love people in our lifetime, whether it's a personality conflict or whether it's just someone that just constantly doesn't like you and is on you, or I hate to say it, but they hate you. You know, they just can't stand you, and they've made it publicly known. What this does, loving your enemies and praying for those who persecute you, does a couple of things. First off, it sets you apart from everybody else. Everybody else is comfortable loving those who love you and ignoring, hating, disregarding those who don't like you. I mean, that's kind of human nature, isn't it? You love me, I'm going to love you back. You don't like me, psh, forget you. I'm flick you off my shoulder. I'm not going to think about it. But as Christians, we're supposed to be different. We're called to be different. That's the whole context of chapter 5 of Matthew. Blessed are those who are persecuted for righteousness' sake, not because you're doing wrong and sinful, but because you're living for me and you're persecuted, you're going to be blessed. So here it comes to the summation. Jesus didn't come to abolish all the law and the prophets. He came to fulfill them. So he's telling us right here that loving your enemies and praying for those who persecute you is going to set you apart. What it's going to do is a couple of things. Like I said, set you apart first off. But the second thing, it's going to change something in your heart. I got to tell you, I've done this several times. And each time, I don't know why, but I do start out thinking, it's not going to work. It's not going to work. It's not going to work. I have that negative mindset. But throughout it, things change. A man who teaches on prayer should believe in prayer. And that's I do believe in prayer, but I ain't gonna lie, I do doubt sometimes. I think this is not gonna work, praying for my enemies, praying for those who are doing wrong against me, but it does. Not always in the way I think it should work out, but it does work out. So let me give you this, I don't want to say magic formula, but it's kind of a magic formula for you and for me. It helps you in your heart. It helps relieve tension, and it helps get your mind focused on the things of God instead of the things of man. So love your enemies and pray for them. So loving them, okay? That means when you're at work or at the store or at church or wherever you're at, and hopefully you don't have a whole lot of enemies at church, but you know, sometimes personalities conflict. Love them. Show them love. Okay? Don't ignore them. Say hi. You know, you don't have to really go out of your way and bring them a baked meal, but it wouldn't hurt. Now, praying for them. This is where it gets the home run. When you're praying for them, ask God, God, not only change their heart, change my heart. Help me to forgive them. Help me to love them. God, work your wonderful will in our lives, okay? Both of our lives. Things change, and I can tell you story after story of when I prayed for people that were just hateful to me or just disregarded. And it's not about me. It's about God's will being done in them. And then again, God's will being done in me, changing my heart. So God did. He intervened. Things happened where their attitude totally flipped. I mean, they didn't like me, and now they do. And I could see changes start to happen. And you know what? Several of them came to know the Lord and have a personal relationship with Jesus Christ. It was amazing. Even me, knowing the power of prayer, I was still going, wow, God, you just like to show off. And that's what God does, show off for us. And you know, for us, showing off, it's kind of self-centered. Showing off for God, and I don't mean to use this in a negative context because it's not. It's God doing his natural abilities. He is God. He can do anything. He spoke the stars into existence. He can change anyone's heart. Now, we have to choose to change as well, but he works in our hearts. He convicts us and tells us, hey, you're not going to have a good life without me. This word behind me, I don't know if you've been staring at it or not, it says, whatever you do, do it all for the glory of God. 1 Corinthians 10:31. That is a good verse for you to think about this week. Whatever you do, do it all for the glory of God. So love, pray, and then forgive. Next week, we're going to talk about forgiveness. This week is kind of a little bit of forgiveness because you have to forgive in order to pray for your enemy. It's hard to pray for someone if you have that bitterness inside of you, just kind of congested up and not allowing those words of love and prayer for someone, intercessing for them in prayer. And lastly, I want to end with this. When we're praying, remember, we're just a vessel, okay? A wise lady that I know, a good friend of mine, told me, we're just vessels. Don't get so proud when you're praying that you are the righteous one. Remember the sinner who beat his chest and said, forgive me, Lord, for I am unrighteous. I'm a sinner. Remember that when you're praying. You're not perfect, just like I'm not either. But praying does help. It does work. So love your enemies and pray for those who persecute you. God bless y'all. I hope your week is blessed.